dairy farm, and there were a lot of shots this year. So it's encouraging because, the deer do a lot of crop damage, and that's one of the number one things we hear from farmers in Indiana County is, we need a way to control the deer population to prevent that crop damage. So I think it's good to see people out hunting and enjoying the outdoors.
As many as get hit by a car, that's still not enough.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
Unfortunately. All right, let's talk a little bit about Harrisburg as we head toward the end of a year, and we still are struggling with that state budget. My goodness gracious, does it ever get done?
Well, it has to get done, Todd. This is extremely frustrating. Here we are, the first week in December, and we still don't have a finished budget. And it's really starting to affect people. It's so very frustrating to me that we only have one more week of session left this year, next week. And if we don't get it done next week, then the governor is going to present his next budget in February. And House Democratic leaders don't plan to bring us back until March after this coming week. So I think that's ridiculous, and we need to get this done because it truly is affecting people's lives. I sat next to Dr. Tuesday Stanley, who's the president of Westmoreland Community College at the chamber meeting a couple of weeks ago, and she said to me, and I think you're starting to see this in the news media now, that community colleges need that funding, and they're taking out loans and really stretching themselves too thin, and in some cases, they're going to have to go out of business. That's also affecting our library. I heard from Kate Geiger just the other day, like, what's going on with this funding? And the sad part is the Senate is sending us bills that could go directly to the governor to be signed, but House Democrats are stopping that simply because of a policy issue related to school choice. That also includes these bills that have been coming over, the education code bills, have included my House Bill 27 that you and I have discussed about extending and making permanent the flexibilities in hiring substitute teachers, which our school districts here in Indiana County and across this Commonwealth desperately need. So it's not only frustrating to be in this position and not be able to get this done because of certain people who are stopping the process, but it's unacceptable that we are putting people's lives on hold because we can't get this done.
Say the governor says, I'm going to sign this no matter what. If it gets to me, I'm signing it. Does that put any added pressure on the Democrats?
Well, I think that's part of the challenge. I'm not sure that the governor and Democratic House leaders are on the same page with a lot of this stuff. There's been a lot of back and forth communications between the governor and the Senate, I believe, and they have worked out some agreements. So these bills that are coming over aren't one-sided. There are compromise bills. There are things in especially the education code bill, that both sides can agree on, both sides want. There are things that are good for Democratic policymakers, and there are things that are good for Republican policymakers. That's the art of compromise, and that's what you need to get these bills done. And there's no reason they shouldn't be getting done other than that one policy issue related to school choice. But again, there are things in there that House Democrats want. There are Democratic bills in there. There are Republican bills in the code. And, we could have had this done months ago if they would just realize that that's how Harrisburg has to work. And now we're affecting people's lives. And to me, that's extremely frustrating, and it shouldn't be happening.
So approaching 6 months past the deadline to have all this wrapped up, and
right.
and we're still not there. And as frustrating as that is, there has to be a way to break this logjam. If constitutional requirements are ignored, as they are,
yes,
then what is the state to do?
Well, I'm hoping that, sensible heads will prevail here in the coming week. We're supposed to be there Monday through Wednesday, possibly Thursday and Friday, and I think we should stay as long as it takes to get this done. I thought we should have stayed back in June to get this done when they sent us home for the summer, which I think, again, is unacceptable. We should be getting the people's work done. We should not be recessing. We should be there until the job is done. So I'm hoping that, with the back and forth that's been happening, it's been 3 or 4 different education code bills that have come across that have gone back to the Senate, from the House, from the Senate back to the House. I'm hoping that, we can see clearly to the end here and get something done next week.
Is pressure put on the governor to call a special session? And at a special session, the only topic that can be addressed is this one?
I have not heard that yet, Todd, but I'm sure that's a possibility. And I'm sure the governor is equally frustrated. He has to be hearing it from the people across this Commonwealth. I know that I'm hearing it, and our colleagues are hearing it, because they need this funding, and we should be providing this funding. We should be putting people before policy, and unfortunately that is not what is happening in Harrisburg right now.
Something you mentioned earlier in this conversation is a source of frustration for a whole bunch of people watching what's happening in Harrisburg and how the state is being governed, and that is what has been a tremendous slowdown in session meetings.
Yes.
For our state legislature, for the State House of Representatives,
the House,
specifically. Yes. The why is one question that folks have.
Yeah.
But then the how. How do we break that? And how do we get get you guys all back to work, because it appears, at least on the outside, that nobody's doing any work in the House of Representatives.
Well, there's certainly a lot of work occurring. As you know, I have over 20 bills introduced this session, several resolutions. I'm hoping that the design build legislation that we passed out of the Transportation Committee, myself and the chairman, Ed Nilsson from Philadelphia, both co-authored that bill. That is supposed to be up for a vote next week, so I'm hoping that that moves forward, as well as my resolution to study rural transportation needs. So there is a lot of work that's occurring. It's just that you're seeing a lot of these headlines, and there are bills that are good, that are moving. And what I hope will happen through this process, this is the first year for the House Democrats to be in leadership. I'm hoping that they learn some lessons through this process about working together, about realizing that it's not just about getting a win, it's about helping Pennsylvania. And unfortunately, we're going to recess here after next week, and we're not supposed to come back until March. And let's be blunt. It's because they are going to lose one of their members, and it'll be an even split within the House of Representatives. It means 101 to 101 until a special election, which then they'll bring us back into session. Let's be blunt about it, Todd. That's what's happening. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's truly sad, because if a bill is a good bill, you shouldn't need a partisan vote to pass it. Right? You should have bipartisan support of a good bill to get it passed. And there are plenty of good bipartisan bills out there, but we won't pull those up for a vote because of those political issues.
Is that not also the reason why you met so few times in this year?
It is absolutely why. Some of their members left for different offices, and once they lose that one vote majority, they don't bring us down for any votes. And to me, again, it's incredibly frustrating, because this is not how government is supposed to work, and that is not why the people sent us to Harrisburg. They sent us there to get things done, to make their lives better, and we can't do that if we're not there voting on good legislation.
All right, so we're getting toward the end of this year. Say everything happens the way that we would love for it to happen,
yes,
and you guys get back to work in Harrisburg,
yes,
as opposed to not.
Mm-hmm.
And what are some of the things that you want to see happen in the first 6 months of the year? Obviously, the governor's budget address is going to come.
Yes,
and
beginning of February.
It comes in, yeah, and right away you're back into budget talks.
Well, I think we could be making a direct impact on people's lives right now. People are struggling. Inflation is still out there. The cost of goods and services, the cost of energy are higher than they've been in many, many years. And that's causing people to not be able to make ends meet. We should be addressing those issues. We should be working at ways to reduce the cost for working families. We should be looking at ways to reduce the cost of energy. We should be looking at ways to reduce taxes, to put more money back into people's wallets. I think we should be doing things that help people, particularly not just here in the holiday season when it really comes to a head, but looking into next year. What can we do to make people's lives better? What can we do to put more money back in their wallets to feed their families and to make ends meet?
That's a wonderful agenda.
Yes, and I think we could get it done if we all work together, and if we're not just trying to push one policy issue or another policy issue based on partisan politics. If we're actually working together to try and, bring both sides of the aisle together to say, look, this is going to help families, this is going to help our communities, let's get this done. And I think that's where we need to be.
Next year being an election year
yes,
for you and for some members of the Senate as well.
Yes.
There will be the opportunity for election year movement, which is different than in other years. If somebody's not up for election, they're not all that motivated to do things. But when election year rolls around and they have the opportunity to at least appear to be doing something,
yes,
there's the chance that you could actually move some legislation through. Is there not?
Well, there is, but again, it depends on, who's running the show in Harrisburg. As I've said before, people who aren't familiar with it, the majority runs the calendar. The majority runs the committee. So any legislation that moves, the majority decides when and if that legislation moves. So again, it would need to be a good compromise to say, this is a good bill that helps everyone. Let's put aside partisan politics and let's get this done. And I truly believe that's possible, because that is how it's supposed to be. Working with the governor, working with the Senate, working with the House of Representatives, all of us working together on compromise bills that help everyone.
Well, that would be a wonderful thing to do, and maybe the fact that it's an election year, they'll at least want to appear to be doing some.
Well, as I said earlier, Todd, I hope
maybe
that
if
some
their
lessons have been
seats are
learned.
in jeopardy, then possible.
It's possible. It's possible. But I am always encouraged. I'm always working hard, working on legislation. Hopefully we can move that legislation. I have a lot of bills out there that would make a difference in people's lives right now, and I'm hoping that a lot of those move forward.
All right. So we're thinking about budget all the time.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we're also thinking about Reggie and
Yes.
waiting for that court decision to come down again.
Again.
That long time waiting mode that we find ourselves in.
Yes.
Obviously, you haven't heard anything about what judicially will happen. Legislatively, are you hearing anything?
I still have my House bill out there that would require the General Assembly to give the approval for any kind of a multi-state compact like the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, which, again, we're really disappointed that Governor Shapiro decided to appeal that court decision, basically saying that he should have the power to do that. And again, that isn't even what the court decided. The court said that, you don't have that power. It is the constitutional right of the General Assembly to create a tax, and they basically said Reggie is a tax. And I think it was really, really sad on the day that many of us from around the region, elected officials, state representatives, state senators, were touring the Seward power plant, looking at how important they are to the grid. They're turning bony piles back into green space and parks. They're doing such great work for the environment while also providing base load energy. And the governor makes that decision while we're down there. I mean, it makes no sense to me. As I said earlier, we should be looking at ways to reduce energy costs, to reduce the cost for working families, and Reggie will not do that. Reggie will increase taxes. It will increase the cost of energy. These companies, if they survive, are going to have to pass that cost on, and that's going to be impacting your consumers.
He is State Representative Jim Struzzi. All of that frustration in Harrisburg right now, but at least we can wish you the merriest of holidays.
Well, thank you, Todd. I appreciate that. And I would remind people that we will be participating in the Indiana Cookie Walk this Saturday. So stop by the office, I think from 12 to 2. We look forward to seeing you, and I wish everyone a very Merry Christmas.
It is the voice of Indiana County. It's WCCS 101.1 FM, AM 1160, and WCCSradio.com. Fox News is up next at the top of the hour. We follow that with news from our WCCS newsroom with Jake, and a check of sports on the way. Bob Fulton coming up. We talk a little Pirates baseball with you.
Sights to behold, beautiful sunsets, a newborn smile, and vibrant floral and balloon arrangements by Flower and Balloon Gallery. There you'll find floral and balloon arrangements for everyone. The Flower and Balloon Gallery has the widest assortment of flowers, balloons, gift ideas, and seasonal decorations. Remember Friday Happy Flower Hours 3 to 5, 50% off carry-out bouquets. See the Flower and Balloon Gallery on Facebook and blooming at the corner of Rose Street and Oakland Avenue, Indiana's premier flower and balloon designers.
Your office is filled with equipment, printers, a copier or two, scanners, and maybe even a fax. Getting trained or tech support shouldn't be a hassle. Burger Office Systems makes it easy. The new Xerox machines do all of that and more in one machine. When you get your Xerox from Burger Office Systems, you'll see it's much more than a copier.